Welcome to this week's TDD Weekly Report for the week ending October 16th. First up, if any of you have ever done hiking into national parks, it can be quite fun, but there's also a safety factor involved. Well, nowadays, according to the New York Times article, with technological devices such as GPS, the spot satellite, emergency beacons, and cell phones, people with very little or no experience are venturing into the national parks and trying to become instant expert mountain climbers, hikers, things like that without having the necessary training or experience or working their way up to it, always thinking the fact in the back of their mind they could call on the cell phone or actually contact rescue services using these devices if they get in trouble, which should be no substitute for proper training and actually knowing what you're doing. Well, just an example. Now, this is a New York Times article here, and this is an example of one of the stories. In the article, it talks about several stories of people getting into trouble, and not just getting in trouble, but people even using the cell phones and calling up park rangers on top of mountaintops asking if they can have hot cocoa delivered and things like that. So it gets rather ridiculous here, but just one story is a group of hikers. There were 2 adults and 2 teenage boys. They were hiking in the canyon, Grand Canyon, and only one of the hikers had any experience in the Grand Canyon. Well, they used their spot satellite device to signal an emergency condition. Since they're not two-way communication, they have no idea what's going on, so they just have to dispatch a helicopter at a cost of $3,400 per hour. They went out and answered the first call and found out the leader of the group was concerned because they didn't have enough water with them and they were getting dehydrated. So after the helicopter dropped off the water and left, they signaled again in the evening for the same thing, for the helicopter to come out, which needed night tracking devices and all kinds of night vision devices to find them. The same thing again. It was because they needed water. They found some water, but it tasted salty, so they dispatched a helicopter a second time, and they still refused any kind of evacuation or any kind of medical treatment, just wanted some more water. And then the third time, the next morning, when they summoned the when they pushed the emergency device again, they were invited to leave the park, which probably should have been done the time before. But this is just an example of people using technological devices and relying on them rather than good training and good expertise at what you're doing and starting out slow. No reason why you can't start out with just a small hike and work your way up. Just because you've got a cell phone and a GPS with you does not make you an instant mountain climber. The reference to this I'll put down below the video. Next up, some of you, if you're math geeks like I am, this name really sounds familiar to it. Benoit Mandelbrot passed away on October 14th. I had no idea when I first heard this story a couple of days ago that he was even still alive. You're probably familiar, if you're a math geek, with the Mandelbrot set, but he's most noted for a thing called fractals. It's an equation that has points that when you plot the equations out, they form these geometric figures that are closer to real things in nature than anything normal classic geometry is. In other words, like his saying in the one book that I'm going to recommend, clouds are not spheres and mountains are not cones. Well, fractals actually form shapes that are closer to anything in nature than classic geometry can describe. And one nice thing about fractals too is, just like in nature, if you take close-ups of certain objects like snowflakes or leaves, the closer you zoom in, the more you can see characteristics of the same exact thing in smaller scale. You just keep magnifying and magnifying and you see the same shape repeated over and over again. That's kind of a generalization, but I would also like to recommend, if you want to know a little bit more about fractals, the first book I read about it, being a math geek myself, was called The Fractal Geometry of Nature. This was written by Mandelbrot himself. And I'll show you a few pictures of what fractals look like, but they imitate things in nature, such as leaves or fern leaves, tree branches, even shells, seashells too. So fractals are something that is pretty well known to people in nature, and quite a well-known person to people like me that are math geeks passed away this week, and so if you get a chance, check out that book. Last up, wind power. Now, this is something I've seen before where they talk about wind power without actually turning blades or any kind of moving parts. I've seen some electrostatic projects about that didn't seem to really play out, but I guess right now they're actually in Abu Dhabi. They're actually building this. This article is from discovery.com, wind power without the blades, and these are stalks that bend back and forth in the wind. Supposedly, according to this article, I'll put some pictures up as I'm talking about this. Supposedly, according to the article, it kind of contradicts itself, because part of the article says you can put them closer together, and you can see they are very close together, kind of like they look like wheat stalks in a wheat field, and the same area produces the same energy of a conventional wind farm. But they also say each one of these stalks, which I guess they're rather tall, they can be like close to 200 feet or something like that, 180 feet high, 33 to 66 feet wide. These stalks, they say, can produce as much energy, each individual stalk, as a wind turbine, a conventional wind turbine. But that doesn't make sense. That contradicts the other thing. So I would say maybe my best guess is probably about maybe a third at the most. But still, because of the fact you can space them so close together, whereas in a conventional wind farm you have turbulence to worry about, and they have to be spaced 3 times the rotor diameter apart to keep out of the wind turbulence. One picture is really particularly beautiful looking too, because at the top of each one of these stalks they have a small LED light to show they're generating electricity. So I think the main thing with these may be the fact that a lot of people are concerned with the wind farms, the conventional ones, not looking so pretty, although I like the way they look. But these things with the wind stalks might be a little bit more satisfactory to people that are picky about something for looks. And they also, in this particular project they're doing, they also have battery storage underneath too for when the wind isn't blowing. So it's a combination of the wind stalks blowing back and forth in the wind, generating electricity, and batteries. So anyway, 2 other things I would like to mention too. I got a very good response to the steampunk series I've done. I actually did 2 of them. I did one a few reports back, but I did one, I think, well more than a year ago on the TDD report. So I will try to get more. If anybody's, by the way, if you have actually tried to do something steampunk or you're working on it, send me videos, send me pictures. I won't have any problem at all with featuring it. I like it when people do some of the stuff that I talk about in my TDD reports. So send anything you have. If you're working on a specific project yourself, I would love to feature it or show pictures of it. So if I can find it, I'll get some more steampunk out there for you. Also, I want to, from time to time, as it's coming up, I want to promote the Polar Bear Challenge and the Solar Bear Challenge. I'll put the links down below too. For the Polar Bear Challenge, I know for sure you do have to be a member of the official website and post your videos there if you want your competitions to count. So go to polarbearchallenge.ning.com. I'll also have the link below, and then the link I don't know off the top of my head, but it's RC62 that is hosting the Solar Bear Challenge and being the judge. So I'll put the link below to that. So it starts November 1st. So if you're interested, please participate. So that's it for this week. I will catch you guys next week.